Welcome to the Football Word. I'm Doug Kide. This is Zach Cox. We last did this show on Friday, and a lot has transpired since then. We will get into everything, but let's start with the biggest news of the weekend. That was the Patriots shipping their first-round pick and a third-round pick for Brandin Cooks and a fourth-round pick. That trade was made with the New Orleans Saints. It was rumored for weeks. Almost kind of surprising that it finally came together, just because usually Patriots trades come out of the blue.
Yep.
So initial question on this. It's a lot to give up for Brandin Cooks. Do you think he's worth the price?
Yes, I do. I do think he's worth the price. It is a little... I did not expect the Patriots to pay this. Let me put it this way. I didn't expect the Patriots to pay this high of a price for a wide receiver this offseason.
Yeah.
But when you look at Cooks and the production that he's had the last 2 years, I mean, over 1,000 yards each of the last 2 seasons, he's really been a beast for that Saints offense, which is perennially one of the best in the NFL. So I'm very, very interested to see what Tom Brady can do with Brandin Cooks. Now, I mean, we said at the end of this past season that this might have been the best wide receiving core from top to bottom that Tom Brady has ever had. Now you replace either Danny Amendola or Michael Floyd with Brandin Cooks, and that is a very, very large upgrade. So it's going to be scary for opposing defenses this season.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting just to see all of the weapons the Patriots now have on offense. I wouldn't call this a steal because they did have to give up a first-round pick. They had to give up the third-round pick. And even that fourth-round pick that they received back from the Saints now moves back down into the 130 range because the Patriots have to lose their highest fourth-round pick. So it's certainly not a steal, but it does make the Patriots better.
Yep.
It certainly makes the Patriots better over the next 2 seasons. It's kind of weird to see a somewhat short-sighted trade like this come from Bill Belichick, but there's only so many years left of the Tom Brady era, so they are making the most out of them, and I guess that gets into our next question. Is this the best offense that the Patriots have ever had? I'm going to say yes, because I was making the argument last year that their offense was the best that the Patriots have ever had under Tom Brady. Now you take away Martellus Bennett, throw in Brandin Cooks, throw in Dwayne Allen, potentially take out, I guess, Danny Amendola in this scenario, possibly. He could even come back. Who knows what's going to happen with that big back running back, but I don't know. I don't think you can really beat this when the running back position goes Dion Lewis, James White, whoever the big back's going to be, wide receiver, they're going to be 4 or 5 deep, tight end, they're 2 deep. I don't think it really gets much better than this, even 2007.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think 2007 is kind of the holy grail in that regard in the minds of Patriots fans. Obviously, they broke all the records,
Right.
went undefeated during the regular season. But, I mean, at that year they had Randy Moss, they had Wes Welker. But this year, just top to bottom throughout all the offensive skill positions. Like you said with the running backs, even if they don't bring back LeGarrette Blount, they do have Dion Lewis, they do have James White. Maybe DJ Foster could factor into that mix. They'll bring somebody else in there too. We got wide receivers we just talked about. Tight ends, they didn't have Rob Gronkowski for basically half of this past season.
Yeah.
They're going to get him back. Dwayne Allen, I think, is a slight step down from Martellus Bennett, but not there's not a glaring difference in their game. So yeah, and we still have about 6 months left in the offseason for them to add more people either through the draft or free agency. Maybe they're going to make some additional trades later. So already, and we're not even into April yet, and this is looking like a very, very formidable offense.
Adding Cooks is a little bit of a surprise because he did have some diva tendencies with the Saints. Our mutual friend, Nick Underhill, who covers the Saints for the New Orleans Advocate, he kind of got into some of those things, that there was an outburst after a game. He wasn't happy with his role. When he wasn't getting targeted, he wasn't very happy. So I think these things are a little bit of a concern, especially when that kind of player comes to the Patriots, because that kind of stuff will not fly with the Patriots. Bill Belichick isn't going to put up with it. So we'll see how they handle him. They handled Randy Moss pretty well. They've only got 2 years of Cook, so can't go that sour, but it is a little bit concerning.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that a team lets go of a player of Brandin Cooks' caliber, who's only 23, who's on his rookie contract, he's incredibly cheap, that lets him go. I mean, they did get a first-round pick back from him, but they were basically shopping him. I mean, it would have been very surprising if he stayed on the Saints through this offseason. So you got to ask why. I mean, there were some of those diva tendencies that you were talking about, but he was so productive. Why did they feel so strongly that they had to get this guy out of their locker room? I mean, I don't think that it's going to be a huge problem for the Patriots just looking at it. They do have a reputation of being able to take these kind of, I don't want to call them a malcontent, but guys who have had trouble elsewhere, bring them into their system, kind of mold them into the players that they want them to be. But it does have to be a little bit concerning.
Yeah, and it sounds like it might have been him who kind of wanted out, but from their side, it's not the worst thing either. They've got Michael Thomas. They've got a few really quality receivers. Their offense is never much of a problem. Their defense is, so they'll probably use that number 32 pick on a defensive player. One thing that I just want to pound the table about for a couple seconds is that this idea that if something happened once, it's going to happen again. And this is what's happening this offseason with some people complaining the Patriots are adding too many pieces, and it's reminding them of the 2007 season, and that sometimes too much can be a bad thing. And I think that this is just an insane concept. Just because the Patriots went 18-0 and then lost in the Super Bowl once because they built up their offense and built up their team back in 2007 does not mean this is going to happen again. Adding dangerous pieces, adding players like Brandin Cooks is not a problem. This is not something that anyone should ever complain about. Yet, on Twitter, every day, I see people complaining about it.
I mean, do people really view the 2007 season as a failure because they lost one game to the Giants, in which they allowed, 17 points in that game?
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest teams in NFL history, even though they did not win they lost the last game of the season by 3 points. They won the 18 games preceding that. If you're comparing any team to the 2007 team, that should be a compliment, not a cautionary tale.
Yeah, the Patriots did not lose that Super Bowl because they had too much talent on their team. They lost that Super Bowl because they lost the Super Bowl, because crazy things can happen. Let's move on before I get too fired up. Malcolm Butler. This is a saga at this point.
Yep.
And we were talking about this a couple of minutes ago. It seems like every day you get some version of the same report out there about Malcolm Butler, about Dante Hightower, about all of these things that are going on with the Patriots, Jimmy Garoppolo, for instance. With Butler right now, it seems more and more likely that the Patriots probably will not have him on their roster next season. The reports out there are that his agent is kind of shopping him to other teams, that perhaps they would prefer to go to another team because that's probably a better chance that Butler's going to be paid. It seems like the Patriots probably are not going to be willing to give Butler that $13 million per season deal like they gave Stephon Gilmore. So all of these things are kind of colliding right now. It kind of depends on who you listen to, whether Butler is going to be malcontent or discontent, if he stays in New England or not. So I guess the real question here, are the Patriots being fair to Malcolm Butler? Because this is a franchise player, not only because he's so good, but because he made a franchise-altering play in the Super Bowl. This is a player that you would actually love to have around for a long time. Now the Patriots aren't willing to pay him like he probably deserves to be paid. Are they being fair?
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell exactly because we don't know what's been said in the negotiation rooms. We don't know the exact details of all these contract talks. So it's hard to tell what he's been offered, what he actually really wants. Yeah. But I mean, according to a recent report by Jeff Howe of the Boston Herald just this morning, the Patriots told Malcolm Butler last offseason that they wouldn't pay any cornerback more than $10 million a year. Then they offered him in the 6 to 7 range. Then last week they paid Stephon Gilmore $13 million a year. And if these reports are correct, Malcolm Butler has a right to be pissed about this. I mean, absolutely. He's under. You can, at the end of the day, a contract is a contract. You have to follow what the contract says. But for him to be paid less than $4 million this next year, if he does agree to that first round tenure, and then to look across the field, as we talked about last week, and see a guy in Gilmore get paid $9 million more than you, it's not. He has a right to be angry about that, to be unhappy about that. But it's all about what you can do about it. There's not really much he can do unless he wants to hold out and get paid nothing and hurt his stock that way. We have reports that his agent is talking to other teams, trying to get someone to give up a first-round draft pick to sign him away. There's reports he could be traded. I mean, by the time this is posted, I'm sure there'll be more and more reports that have come out. So I don't know. It's weird how far down his stock has almost gone in seemingly the eyes of the Patriots in the last couple of weeks. I mean, at the end of the season, we looked at this guy as a bona fide franchise cornerback no matter what. And now it seems like he might not even be back, and he might even exit on rough terms, which is a very weird change of events from what we saw just a couple months ago.
Yeah, it's really an unfortunate situation just because, I mean, like I mentioned before, he's been so important to the franchise over the last 3 years with the Super Bowl 49 play.
And the fact that he's been the number one cornerback.
He's been the number one cornerback for the last 2 years. But I guess to a certain degree, you can't completely blame Bill Belichick for being willing to pay a guy like Stephon Gilmore $13 million and not be willing to pay a guy like Malcolm Butler $13 million. Just because of the scenario that both of them came into the league. Malcolm Butler kind of bounced around some colleges because of some off-field things. Not sure how well, the Patriots know that he would respond to a big contract like that. Obviously, Butler hasn't had any issues in New England so far, but he did come in as an undrafted player for a reason. His measurables weren't fantastic coming out of college. He doesn't have that prototypical size for a cornerback. So, I mean, on the field, everything's been great with Butler. The Patriots have shown a lot of faith in him. But a guy like Gilmore is probably going to be a lot more dependable for you. He comes in with a pedigree. He's played very well for more years than Butler played well for. So, I don't know. You can't completely blame it. At the same time, it's not fair because Butler came into the league as an undrafted free agent, and that's why he's in this situation, and he does deserve to be paid well. So we'll see if another team does it for him.
It's a weird departure kind of from the Patriots' MO that we've seen over the last decade or so. Normally it's get two guys in the affordable range, maybe get two very good, rather affordable cornerbacks. And not pay the super high price that you see guys shelling out these massive contracts to cornerbacks. This year they went the opposite way. They paid one guy top dollar, and they're either not going to be able to afford or just not be willing to pay another guy top dollar because I don't think you're going to be able to give Malcolm Butler a $8 million contract when Gilmore's making 13. So it's a different departure from what they usually do, but it's interesting. I'm interested why they went this way this offseason. I don't really have a good answer for that.
And even looking a few years down the line or 10 years down the line, it's kind of unfortunate that this relationship might end on bad terms because you'd like to bring this guy back to celebrate that Super Bowl 49 play, and who knows what's going to happen at this point. Moving on to some other players the Patriots added basically over the weekend. They acquired Coney Ealy from the Panthers. They gave the Panthers their second-round pick. Panthers gave them their third-round pick. So now the Patriots don't have a first-round pick or a second-round pick. Patriots also signed Lawrence Guy. These are kind of depth signings. Ealy is probably going to be the third or fourth edge rusher on defense. Lawrence Guy is probably going to be the third or fourth defensive tackle. But these are the guys that you need to bring in. I really like the Ealy deal because they didn't have to give up much for him.
They dropped, 8 picks?
Yeah,
to
8
bring him
picks
in?
or something.
Yeah, that's
so
nothing.
That's not a big deal. And then Guy, the initial contract looked pretty high, but given all of the guarantees and given what the contract actually looks like, they aren't paying much for a guy who's 6'4", 300 pounds, and can be a versatile piece to play behind Alan Branch and Malcolm Brown. So I like both these signings. They're kind of necessary things that the Patriots need to do this offseason to increase their depth.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the reputation around Guy is that he's a very good run defender. Obviously, Alan Branch is also a very good run defender. That really solidifies that defensive line that was pretty good even before they brought in Guy here. And especially since they re-signed Branch last week. And then Coney Ealy, I think people most remember him for the game he had in Super Bowl 50. He probably would have been the MVP of that game if the Panthers ended up beating the Broncos there. He is a bit more of a pass rusher than Guy is. I believe he has 5 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. So not an explosive guy. Neither of these guys are superstars, but I think they're both pretty solid depth signings, especially since they didn't have to give up much at all to get Ealy.
Yeah, and Ealy's a good piece to have there as a left defensive end, either starting or behind Rob Ninkovich.
They needed pass rushers somewhere.
You need a player opposite Trey Flowers, so it's going to be one of those guys or someone they draft, but good pickup there. Finally, Dante Hightower. This is an ongoing saga, much like many things with the Patriots this offseason. I thought this was going to be ending relatively quickly, but now the report is that now he's going to Pittsburgh for a visit with the Steelers. So this could be a few more days, maybe another, who knows how long this is going to take for this to finally get settled. I still think he winds up with the Patriots. That's what all the reports out there are saying. That's what all these teams are saying, reporters, that they expect Hightower to be back with the Patriots. I think they should just pay up maybe even a little bit extra, get him back here, then you don't have to worry about that inside linebacker position. Hightower's so versatile. He fits in the defense so well. He's a defensive captain. I think just bring him back.
Yeah, it's going to be a real shame if they end up losing him over a matter of $5 or $6 million or something like that. Especially because even after they brought Gilmore, even after they added all these guys, they still have a decent amount of cap space left. They have more than enough to bring back Dante Hightower. And if they nickel and dime him in this situation, it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be a real shame because obviously we've been talking about since the Super Bowl how he is the most important player on this defense. If you take him out, it leaves a massive hole. There's nobody who can really fill his spot on the defensive, in the linebacking core rather. And even if you look at the draft, like, there's some decent linebackers, but you're not going to get anybody that's anywhere close to Dante Hightower.
The third round.
Yep, which I'm also kind of intrigued about whether they're going to move back up. They've never gone 70 picks without. I think their lowest ever. Last year was their lowest ever. The longest ever they've gone before they making their first pick is 60 with Cyrus Jones, obviously because they lost that first round pick. But yeah, I mean, bring him back. I don't know why it's taking so long. I still don't know if that's a good sign for the Patriots or a bad sign? I guess it's a good sign that all the reports we've heard are that the Jets and the Titans both believed that he's going to end up going back to the Patriots. Yeah. But the fact that he's still seeing other teams, maybe he's just trying to do his due diligence. But I don't know. Like you said, I expect him to be back, but it could be another couple days, especially because we're supposed to be getting a big snowstorm up in the Northeast. Could impact his travel plans, push back his Pittsburgh visit. So this is going to be going on for a little while more.
Yeah, this will be interesting. Speaking of that first-round pick, just before we get out of here, Malcolm Butler is a way that they could get back that first-round pick. First of all, would you give up Malcolm Butler for a first-round pick? Second question, would you give up Malcolm Butler for less than a first-round pick?
Ooh. First-round pick, probably yes, just because I don't think the Patriots are going to pay him when he hits the open market next year. Yeah. He's still unless he has a terrible season this year, he's still going to be wanting one of those big money deals. Patriots, I don't think are going to give it to him, especially because they have Gilmore locked up for the next 5 years. So I think if a team either is willing to either if they're willing to do the Patriots sign him to the tender, they trade him for a first-round pick, or another team just outbids them, signs them to an offer sheet, has to give up a first-round pick. I think either of those would be good situations for the Patriots right now. Just because, I mean, unless everything we've heard is not true, then it just seems like they're so far away in negotiations that I would take a first-round pick over one more season of Malcolm Butler.
Yeah, I would take a first-round pick over one more season. I probably wouldn't take a second-round pick over one more season of Malcolm Butler just because of what that would give you at cornerback there. It is interesting that Hightower is visiting with the Steelers because the player that he was compared to the most coming out of college was Levon Kirkland because they're both massive linebackers, so we'll see how all of that shakes out. But that will do it for today's episode of The Football Word. Thank you, Zach, and we will be back with a Between the Tackles podcast later this week, so watch out for that.